Melech b'Yisrael. Whoever was zoiche to be in the mechitzas of Rab Chaim Zecher Tzadik v'Kodesh Livroche had a feeling that you're in the mechitzas of a very elevated person, a person that rose above others like a melech. His whole mitzias, his whole mahus was kulay oimer kovid. It was aristocratish. You saw a refined and elevated person in which this is the true essence of Malchus. The essence of Malchus is melech b'yofyoi techazeno einecha. A true king, a Yiddish king, is somebody who rises above others and lives an exalted lifestyle. And that's how my cousin, Reb Chaim Zatzal, lived. He lived a life of Malchus. Reb Chaim Zatzal was muchter. He was crowned with midas toivus, with exceptional, exemplary midas. The Mashgiach of Mir, the famous Reb Yerucham Zatzal, used to say that when you see somebody possess midas toivus, it's a simon, he's a wise person, he's a Chacham. Because midas toivus emanates from Chochmah. Somebody who has Chochmah conducts his life with midas toivus. And that was Chaim. Chaim was a Chacham, a wise person, a Pikeach. He understood things very deep, and he was able to guide people because he had this Chochmah. And this is really what Talmidei Chachamim personify. The Gemara tells us in Gittin that Talmidei Chachamim are called kings. Talmidei Chachamim are called Melochim, Man Malki Rabbonon. Who is the true Melech b'Yisrael? A Talmid Chacham. And the Maral explains it in this concept that just like a Melech is somebody that elevates himself to be higher than the surroundings that he lives with, he doesn't become influenced from the lifestyles of the people around him, but he lives a much higher lifestyle. The same is true with the Talmid Chacham. A Talmid Chacham lives with the Ribono Shel Olam. That's his guide. He knows what's right, and he follows the path of Derech HaYoshor. He doesn't get swayed from his surroundings and see what others do and lower their standards from influences from the outside. That's a true Talmid Chacham, a true Melech b'Yisrael. Man Malki Rabbonon, who are the true Melochim? The true Melochim are Talmidei Chachamim. Now, when we talk about a Talmid Chacham, the Rambam brings out that a Talmid Chacham's essence is different. His essence is different from his surroundings and is discernible, the Rambam writes. The Rambam in Ilchos Deis writes, Talmid Chacham is movdal from others, not just in his chokhmah, in his ashkofes, in his midas, but in his whole holach yelech. In every action you can see, here's a Talmid Chacham. You could see this is a different anhogeh. The Rambam writes, Achochem nikar b'chochmosoi u'b'deyoisov v'umuvdu b'mishara om. How he eats, how he drinks, how he talks, how he walks, what he wears, and how he wears his clothes, how he measures his words, how he conducts himself with others. The whole holach yelech, the Rambam says of a Talmid Chacham is, Kol ma'isov is noyim u'mesukonim b'yoser. They're beautiful. They're so inspiring. To watch a Talmid Chacham, when you watched Reb Chaim, you saw how immense that every action of his personified Malchus. It personified Chochmah. And this was not just when he became older. We were together for many, many years. When we were young, together in the yeshiva, he learned by us and tells. We were chaverim and we were working together in different projects. And when he was young, you already saw these anhogas. You already saw these tunas of malchus. You already saw he was a higher type person. He was not following everybody else, but he knew what he has to do, and he knew what he wants in life and where he's heading for. This is how he lived his life. His life had a mission, and he had goals, and he went to accomplish that, and that's what he did. So on one hand, he was what we call a king. But on the other hand, and it's not a stira, he was an Eved Hashem. He was an Eved to the Ribono Shel Olam, and an Eved Hashem, the Radak writes in the beginning of Sefer Yeshua, somebody that all his actions, all his koiches, all his machshavos is all around the Ribono Shel Olam. His life is just geared exactly what the Ribono Shel Olam wants from me in every action, even if it was a dover shel reshus, but it was done the fi rotzen haboire, the way he understood the rotzen haboire. And this is the greatest shvach you can say about a person. You know, Moshe Rabbeinu, we would expect the Torah to bring out what was the greatness of Moshe, Rabban Shel Yisrael, and there's so many things that can be brought out from Moshe Rabbeinu, but there's only one thing that the Ribono Shel Olam brings out in the end of the Torah. Vayomosh Moshe Eved Hashem. This is the greatest title you can give a person. Somebody who lives like an Eved. An Eved is somebody who has no personal agenda. There's no I, there's no me. I don't think about myself, but totally thinking about the Ribono Shel Olam and what I can do to make the Eibusher nav nachas ruach. That's what it means in Eved Hashem. In the beginning of Sefer Yeshua, it's brought out again. Vayich v'mois Moshe Eved Hashem. The Sefer Yeshua ends when it brings out who Yeshua was. Vayomosh Yeshua Eved Hashem. If you want to know who was Yeshua, Yeshua was Eved Hashem. You would think Moshe, Yeshua, the ones who kept the Messiah of Torah and transmitted it l'dairis. Moshe kibul Torah misinai u'Mesor Yeshua. But when the Torah wants to bring out what was the greatness of Moshe, he lived a life that personified that he is an Eved Hashem, and there's no greater title than that. This is the greatest title you can bestow on somebody. He's an Eved Hashem. And this was Rab Chaim. Rab Chaim, you saw every tenuah was measured. Everything he did was with a cheshbon. He didn't do haphazardly. Everything was with a cheshbon. He was shoikel everything, and everything had to be oizgalt, and it had to be emes, it had to be yosher, it had to be al derech haTorah. That's what we call a true Eved Hashem. This is what Moshe was all about. This is what Yeshua was all about. And this is what Reb Chaim Bezer Anpin Versteht, he wasn't in that madrega of Moshe and Yeshua. But Lefi Madrigosoi, he was an Eved Hashem. So on one side, he was this Gvaltike Melech, a Dehoiben Mensch, but it didn't come to him with gaiva and think, I, me. It didn't play any role in his life. He walked around like a simple person. He walked around with tznius, with anivis. He felt he was an Eved Hashem. He was mevatel his rotzen for rotzen shemayim, and that's what it really means to be a true Eved Hashem. I want to bring out something about Reb Chaim. Reb Chaim was a Mashgiach, and you would say, oh, he was a Mashgiach, so that's why he was so oiz gehalten in Lashon Hara. Reb Chaim would never ever speak anything about somebody else to say a word of Lashon Hara. So you might have think it has to do with because he was a Mashgiach. It had nothing to do way before he became a Mashgiach. He was always careful in Shmiras Haloshin. He would never say anything bad about somebody else. Why? Not because of frumkeit. I'll tell you why. Because he loved every Yid. Every Yid he saw the ayin toiva and the good of every single Yid. And you know where he got that from? He got it from his house. I was in the house many times by his great grace Tate, Reb Shmuel David, Zecher Tzadik L'Kodesh Livroche, who was from the Gresta Talmidim Muvakim of the Heilige Chofetz Chaim. And his house was such an open house. His house he took in, it was so full of Ahavas Yisrael. Every person who went through the Mochomeh, Tzebrochene, Yisoimim, Almones, who not, everybody found a place there in his heart. He was open for everybody. He had such a love. It was a meiradikim, mishunadikim love for others, for anybody in Klal Yisrael. It made no difference who you are. You could be the Gresta Tzaddik, and you could be, if you want to say it in not a better way to say it, the Gresta Oisverv. It made no difference. He still loved everybody. Everybody, he had a tremendous ahava. And when you grow up in such a chinuch, he was mechanech his children, each one of them. And Chaim Saptarain, this Mishunadik Ahavas Yisrael, when you love Yidden, it's not possible for you to speak Lashon Hara. The Chofetz Chaim writes it in Shmiras HaLoshim. If you truly love somebody, you can't speak disparagingly about that person. You'll always try and be danim l'kaf schus. You'll always see the good of that person. And it's Yadua, the minhag in Kamam Mashgiachim. People would come to the Mashgiachim Bochrim in the yeshiva and say, we want to make a chabur in Shmiras HaLoshim. And the Mashgiachim would tell them, no, don't make a chabur on Shmiras HaLoshim, because it's not going to work. You got to make a chabur on Avos Yisrael. That's what you got to make a chabur on. When you make a chabur on Avos Yisrael, then there won't be a meduber that I want to speak bad about somebody because you love somebody. You always see the good, and this is how Reb Chaim looked at people. He had a tremendous Ahavas Yisrael. But you know where Ahavas Yisrael comes from? The Maral writes, Ahavas Yisrael emanates from Ahavas Hashem. Somebody who has a burning love for the Ribono Shel Olam is going to have Ahavas Yisrael because wir seien alle Kinder von der Eberste. And they were all bonim l'Hashem, bonim atem l'Hashem Elokeichem. So when you know these people are the children of the Ribono Shel Olam, how could you not love the children of the Ribono Shel Olam? So the Metzil Sheshoim talks about Riches. There's nobody that the Ribono Shel Olam loves more. Reb Chaim was about Lipter B'Eibishter, because when you love others, that shows that you love the Ribono Shel Olam, and the Ribono Shel Olam has a special love for those people who love its children. So Reb Chaim, with his Gewaltike Ahavas Hashem, which brought out Ahavas Yisrael. This is why he could not speak any Lashon Hara, because he never saw anything bad in anybody. He only saw good. He only thought positive about other people. He had this tremendous ayin toiveh. So therefore, he was always gehalten in Lashon Hara. I want to share with you a beautiful nitziv. You know, we're in Golus for so many years. And the reason why we're in Golus is because of Sinas Chinam. Rachmana litzlan, there was Sina in the Zman of Bayisheni. People quarreled and fought and bickered. And there was a Sina one to another. But there's a very interesting nitziv in a few places which he explains what was this Sinas Chinam that was present in the Zman of Bayisheni. And he says, you should know that the people in Bayisheni were tzaddikim, were chasidim, were amolei Torah, but they had a kruma hashkofe. You know what their kruma hashkofe was? That if you didn't conform to their derech and their mahalach Hashem, they looked down at you to such a degree, Rachmana litzlan, that they called him an apikoiris, a tztuki. If you didn't follow my bezunder and mahalach Hashem, so I didn't see you living like so then I looked down at you. By Reb Chaim, there was no such mitzias of looking down at anybody who has a different mahalach Chaim than he had. He was open to any Mahalach HaChaim because he understood that every Mahalach HaChaim has a place in the Muhammad and Kegen the Yetzer Hara. And this is, the Netziv says, is the Shvach of the Ovis. The Shvach of the Ovis, they were Mekarev. Ram Avinu was Mekarev. Who knows who he wasn't Mekarev? Everybody had a place by Avram Avinu. He was trying to be Melech Yosher and Sdoim. He was trying to, for everybody, because he never ever looked down on anybody. Reb Chaim not just didn't look down, he was mechazik and mekarev all so many people from so many kreisen. Why? Because he had a hashkofe, a grate hashkofe. He calls it yashris, to be yoshor, to see truly what the Rebbeinu Shalom wants. And the Rebbeinu Shalom is not saying, this is the derech Hashem. You know, they once asked the Heilige Chofetz Chaim, which derech should a person choose in Avodas Hashem? Should he choose the derech of Hasidim? Should he choose the derech of Misnagdim? Should he choose the derech of Ashkenazim? Should he choose the derech of Svardim? So he went and he asked him about every segment in Klal Yisrael, which is the right derech in Avodas Hashem? And the Chofetz Chaim answered him, all the different Eidos in Klal Yisrael are kulam shovim l'toive. They're all right. Every derech of Avodas Hashem is nochen, kulam ahuvim, kulam brurim, and kulam kedoshim. And the Chofetz Chaim explained it with a mashal. He said every single Eid in Klal Yisrael has their tachlis. Each one has what they give in to the Klal, and they fight the Yetzer Hara and the Ra in the Bria, everyone in a different way. In fact, you could even fight it with music, with Nagina. There's so many different ways of going and being loichem keneged the Yetzer Hara and keneged Ra. But they're all coming for one tafkid. They're coming for one tafkid to serve the Rebbeinu Shalom and to do the Ratzon Hashem. And he explained it with a mashal, with an army. There's an army, and can you say the Navy is the most important part of the army? All we need is a Navy. Can you say all you need is infantrymen? Could you say all I need is warfare with planes, with tanks, with half-tracks, and the list goes on and on, paratroopers. You can have all different types, and you need them all. Because together they work, and together as one homogeneous group, that this together, that's what creates the koyach of an army and a Muhammad, that there's harmony amongst all the soldiers. But you need all different types of warfare to fight the enemy. And that the Chofetz Chaim said is the same in Yiddishkeit. We have to fight the Sitra Achra. We have to fight the Yetzer Hara. We're all there for one tafkid. And there's many different mahalchim and drochim of what to do, and we need them all. So he said all of them are really important in Avodas Hashem, and that's how Reb Chaim lived. And that was the chinuch that he received in his house, that he didn't degrade anybody. He upgraded everybody. He looked up to everybody. And he gave them tremendous chizuk and iskarvis to explain to them that whatever they're doing, if they're doing it for Avodas Hashem, they're doing a gewaltige arbeit of kiddushem shemayim, of bringing out kvoit shemayim. This is the ikar tafkid of what we're here for. You know, there's another inyan in Ahavas Hashem, and that is that you conduct your life in a way that you cause others to love the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's a chelik of the mitzvah of Ahavas Hashem. The Rambam writes this from the Sifri, V'haftas Hashem alekecha, she'yishem shemayim misayev al yodecha. You have to live in you, not just that I love the Rebbeinu Shalom. You try and see that others also come to love the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Gemara in the end of Masechta Yuma brings down this yisoid, V'havta Sheyehei Shem Shamayim Misayev al Yodecha. It's incumbent on a person not just to think about himself and I'm loving the Ribono Shel Olam, but you have to see others also will come to love the Ribono Shel Olam. How? When they'll see your lifestyle, when they'll see the way you conduct with others, maso matone benachasim abriyas, when you treat others royally and you're nice to them and you live together with them, mahabriyas oimris olav. What do people say when they see a person who conducts his life in such a wonderful, elevated way? It didn't come from himself. It's from a chinuch. Ashrei oviv shalim doi Torah. This is Torah Sa'av. This is coming from the house. The house is mechanech you, and the house trains you and teaches you, mein Kind. You have to see to love others by example and by talking to them. And then you have Rabbeim, a Messiah, Ashrei Rabbi Shalim the Torah. Rav Chaim had many Rabbeim that he was yoinik from. He was very, very close to my father. 5 years he learned together with him b'chavrusa. We were together all the years, but he was yoinik. And then when he came to the mir, he was yoinik from Rav Chaim and weiter from the Mashgiach and from Rav Nochem. He was constantly looking to be yoinik. That's what makes the person great. Ashrei Rabbi Shalim de Torah. Ploini Shalom HaTorah Kama Noim Drochav Kama Mesukoni Maisov. And the Ribono Shel Olam is proud of him. Olav Akosov Oimer. You know what the Pasuk says in Yeshaya on this person? The Ribono Shel Olam says, Avdiyato, you're an Eved Hashem. I see the way you live. You live in a way that you're totally connected to the Ribono Shel Olam. It's Yisrael Asher B'cho Espoyer. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you the way you live. This is what Reb Chaim lived like. He was Mekadosh Shem Shemayim. He was Marbik Void Shemayim. And now, Be'ez Istalkusoi, when he's Nifter, the Ribono Shel Olam is Zicher saying on him, Avdiyato Yisrael Asher B'cho Yispoer. We come together at a Yom of Hesped. The tachlis is to learn up Zachen from the Nifter. Think to yourself, it's not impossible for me to get these milas. He wasn't a malach. He wasn't born a malach. He worked on himself. He got inspired and he lived that exalted life. Let us see to emulate him, to learn from him, his mahalach HaChaim, to be an Eved Hashem, to rise above your svivas. Don't follow the Jones around you. Don't follow your sviva, nor see to live hecher. Live a higher lifestyle. Don't get mushman and say, how can I live different from my neighbors? You do what's right. You do what the Ribono Shel Olam wants from you. You live a hecher sort life. You become an Eved Hashem. You're mevatel your rotzen for rotzen shemayim. You live in a way that you personify midas toivis, a manhogia of hecherkeit. You don't speak anything derogatory about others because you love others. You have ahavas Hashem and ahavas Yisrael. You only see the good in everybody. And you don't say, if you don't do the way I do, so then you're mufrich. But you understand that there's kama drochim lamokim. And that was Reb Chaim. He understood kama drochim lamokim, and nothing was mufrich from him. Everything was halik. Everything was there for to bring out kvoid shemayim and kiddush shem shemayim. Let us be nis'aleh. And if we will be nis'aleh, then his neshama will have an ilu. Yoimad, when we come together for a hesped, the tachlis is that everybody should take to themselves and think to themselves, what can I do? How can I emulate this tzaddik? How can I live my life of following his footsteps? Be'ezus Hashem, if we will get inspiration from the night to night, from all the different maspidim who will bring out all the gewaltige schoolers, Omailas HaNefesh, this will be a tremendous ilu and a schus for his Heilig and Neshama, Yehei Zichroi Baruch.
I don't know if it's my place to speak about Rav Chaim Walkin, Zecher Tzadik Livracha Alav Shalom. I'm going to say a few words, what I feel about Hai Gavra Rabba, the Hasarno. We missed Gavra Rabba, Rav Chaim Walkin, Alav Shalom. How did I came to know Rav Chaim Walkin? One day, somebody called me and said, somebody, his name Rav Chaim Walkin, wants to see you. I said, Baruch haba, I didn't know what I'm talking about. Rav Chaim came, and I spoke with him, and start to understand who is in front of me. What is your request, Rav Chaim? What could I help you? He said, I have a book, and I have to print it, take it out. And it happened that I saw somebody that interesting to help me and to sponsor the book. So what's the problem? He said, this book has askamot of Ashkenazic rabbi. He is a Sfadik, he doesn't feel the right way. He needs a Rabbi Sfadi to tell him to sponsor. I told him, your request is very easy and no problem. Just give me your book, and I read the book. In the beginning, he told me Askama. I told him the word Askama, take it out. I'm not for Askamot, but I write a letter for you, and I hope it will help you with Hashem. That's the way I got to know Rav Chaim Walkin. Then, after he spoke a couple words with me, I told him, Rav Chaim, I want to ask you a question. Could you come to the yeshiva, maybe you say some smooth to our kids, our boys? And he agrees. And I got him to talk to in the yeshiva. Meanwhile, I got the book, I read the book, and I said what is in the book. And when he spoke, I started to know him. That's the first time that I know about Rav Chaim Alav Shalom. And with the time, Rav Chaim came. Every time that he came to America, he came to our yeshiva. I invited him to come to the yeshiva. And I told him to say shmuz to the yeshiva. It was great. We find through his books, whatever, Rav Chaim was very rich. Rich in ideas of Musar. Rich in ideas of Musar. Whatever he read, he saw the side of the Musar in the place. If it's the Brei Torah, if it's the Brei Hazal, if it's Pasuk of one Avot, or Pasuk of one Shvatim, or one of the Nevi'im, he finds in this Pasuk the right idea of Musar. And in the Brei Hazal, the same thing. Any rayon that he has, find it in the Brei Hazal and explain it in derech of his Musar. And that was really great for us, or great for me. In his Musar, he was koleh ala Sara. Koleh ala Sara, exactly what he said. Good idea. We had the idea, easy idea, we heard. When he spoke, or he wrote in the books, his devarim was very pshutim, simple, but berurim, clear what he said. read the book, דברים פשוטים and קרירים. No. All גדולי ישראל, that they wrote books with דברים פשוטים, פסוקים. The Rambam עליו השלום, the Ramchal עליו השלום. Very good. We read the דברים and we enjoy it and we reach that is good for us. Anytime they have a chance, I used to call Rabbi Chaim, who was in America, please pass by, send your jewelry that you got in your mouth, let us hear. I want to tell you, what he wrote in Musar, I feel like he was משיירי כנסת הגדולה of מוסר. He was שריד לבית המוסר, absolutely שריד. I myself, I grew in Yerushalayim. I heard Rabbi Eli Lopian from Lev Eliyahu. I heard Rabbi Levenstein was in Yerushalayim also a lot. I heard Alav Shalom, Rav Eliyahu Dessler. I came to America. In America, I didn't have a chance to hear any Mashgiachim. But when I saw him, it's good to hear him. Here again, we hear Musar, and we know what's Musar. But Rav Chaim was unique in his Musar. He was Shaveh Lechol Nefesh. Shaveh Lechol Nefesh. You have to be a right character, that's Shaveh Lechol Nefesh. When you have Musar, you hear a lot of Musar from many people. Usually there is in the Musar, you hear the Musar, you get the Musar. Sometimes there is, and to criticize the Musar something or what else, but you hear. By Rav Chaim Alav Shalom was Shaveh Lechol Nefesh. Any Musar that he wrote, the way he wrote it, the way he expresses what is, was Shaveh Lechol Nefesh. You have many, many people in the place. Nobody has any bikoret or whatever. Criticize. Rav Chaim said Musar, said Siha, is go simple, go glad. That's what was Rav Chaim Alav Shalom. That looks like that was his character. His character was built for Musar, really. That's what we feel. I'm not ready to talk about Chaim. I don't know Rav Chaim so long. I don't know when he was young. His rabbis and everything. Most probably he came from great places. But it was good to hear him. I remember, I want to tell you a small story. I learned in yeshiva in Eretz Israel. One of the yeshivot was Yeshivat Porat Yosef. In our yeshiva was Rosh Yeshiva. His name was Rabbi Ezra. Okay. I left America. I was in Brooklyn. After a few years, the Rosh Yeshiva Naftar. Okay. All of a sudden, somebody got me a book, biography of Rabbi Ezra. Okay. He got to me. I read the book. I read all the book. After I read all the book, I said, I feel thank you for the book. But I must tell you, you're missing something very important in the book. What is important in your book that we're missing? Told him, every student of Rabbi Ezra, when he left, he thinks that he was the best student of the Rebbe. That was the character of the Rosh Yeshiva, that everybody felt that he was one of the best students that he has. That was Rabbi Ezra. And I remember when I told him that, I have a friend that was in Argentina. I told him about it. When I told him about it, he jumped and said, don't you think it's me? Okay, it's a good proof. That's what the story of Rabbi Ezra is. Shaveh Lechol Nefesh. Rav Chaim Walkin Alav Shalom, when he comes to say Siha, Shaveh Lechol Nefesh, nobody not accept the dvarim, and his dvarim מתקבלים על הדעת, מתקבלים על הלב, מתקבלים על השכל, no problem. That was Rav Chaim Walkin. And what was making me this? Because his character was special character that he has, special tzaddik, Shvetzer Hasid, when he talks, everybody accepts what he talks. That's Shaveh Lechol Nefesh. These Devarim Ksarit that I said, I felt about them, I think about them. When I heard that Reb Chaim Niftar, I felt really very bad. Now I have also interest in Reb Chaim Alav Shalom. Reb Chaim was working in Bayit Vagan, is getting this. We have in our yeshiva students. Every year we send students to Yeshivat Hebron. We have about 2-3 minyanim in Yeshivat Hebron. But what happened, I don't know what's happened, but they find where he lives, and they decided to go to his house. Every Thursday evening, they have a meeting together. Reb Chaim was waiting for them and used to give them siha. They used to talk to them, to extend to them, to encourage them, to show them example what was Eved Hashem, like Rav Sorotzkin expressed, to show them example what is Eved Hashem, how to love people, how to look at people, how to have the yahas, how to deal with people, and that was Reb Chaim Alav Shalom. By the Hasra Arad Yisrael Gavra Rabba. That's what we could say. We miss Gavra Rabba, that was by us. We could cry, maybe we didn't know about him before, but the time that before, the last his life that before was great for us. We enjoy it, we benefit from it, and we grow from it, and we really miss him, miss Reb Chaim, as Hashem. יהי רצון שזכותו תעמוד למשפחתו, לקהל, everybody, and not to forget about him, not to forget about his really שריד לאנשי המוסר, הוא מאנשי כנסת הגדולה, שריד לאנשי כנסת הגדולה של המוסר, and was קשה להאמין שפגשנו גדול כזה באמריקה. יהי זכרו ברוך בעזרת השם, והוא יעמוד בתפילה בעד הישיבות, בעד הרבנים ובעד משפחתו, and everybody that came to לחלוק כל כבוד here.
To Rebbetzin Walkin and to Mashgiach Walkin. I was not in Eretz Yisrael when Rav Walkin was niftar, and I didn't get an opportunity to personally pay a shiva call. So with your permission, Hamakim Yinachem Eschem B'Sach Sha'ar V'Elei Tzion Yerushalayim, Sheno only smachot for many years to come. So if you were listening to Rabbi Sorotzkin's speech, as I'm sure all of us were, he mentioned that Rabbi Walkin was not judgmental, that he had a relationship with people who were tzaddikim, and also people who he described as an oisrof. I think I fit one of those categories. And I want you to know that when at the last Siyam Hashas, I was there with my son David from Eretz Yisrael, who is a real Talmid Chacham, and his grandchildren, who are also Talmidei Chachamim, and some of my grandchildren from New York, and my son-in-law from New York, and they all sit and learn. And it was one of the coldest days of my life, and I saw Rabbi Walkin sitting on a stage in the middle of the area, and my grandson Shlomo, who is one of Rabbi Walkin's Talmidim, and who came to his house once a week to learn with him and to get chizuk from him. Shlomo managed to get me down and also up onto the stage where all of the Chashav Rabbanim were seated. And Rabbi Walkin and I had a chance for a private conversation. And I remember telling him that I didn't do Daf Yomi for the last 7 years. And as a result, I felt guilty about being there and participating in a Siyam Hashas. And Rav Walkin said to me, look around this audience. There are maybe 100,000 people here. 70% didn't complete Shas either. So relax. And I said to him, Bli Neder, by the next Siyam HaShas, I want to be a real person who can celebrate the Siyam, and hopefully we will meet there together, Be'ezrat Hashem. And hopefully I will make it, and I'm heartbroken by the knowledge that Rabbi Walkin will not be here then in person. But I think he will be there and hopefully watching me. And since then, I've actually started to do Daf Yomi. And it's not easy, but with the benefit of the English art scroll, I'm able to get through a daf a day. And I want to quote from Daf Lamed in Masech Shabbos, where there is an interesting discussion. And they quote Rabbah, who is saying that he began each shir with some humor because he wanted to bring the crowd to pay attention, to capture them with something that was not just a dry Dvar Torah. And the concept he described as milsa b'dechusa, that it's okay to start a very serious Dvar Torah with a little bit of humor, because that helps you gather in the Olam. So I want to tell you a story, and I want to tell it with kavod for Rav Walkin and for you all who came here, not to laugh, but to pay serious attention, because I want to have the opportunity to hopefully bring you in. When I was a little boy in yeshiva, I didn't do well. And I had, unfortunately or fortunately, I could not stop talking in middle of shir. And I remember the Rosh Yeshiva and the Rebbe called my father, Olav Shalom, to the Cheder, because it was the only way that he was going to allow me to continue in the Cheder is if he would register a complaint with my father. So he brought my father in, and he said to him, and I heard this, it's a true story. He said to him, your son Binyamin has been gifted by Hashem with the ability to communicate effectively. Maybe one day he will use that gift for something good. And tonight, to be honest with you, I feel that if I'm able to communicate effectively, this is something good. This is, for me, to be able to share with you the real ahava I had for Rabbi Walkin. And when I was called by my son, who is a real Talmid Chacham in Eretz Yisrael and operates a cheder with 300 Talmidim, and Rabbi Walkin is very involved in the chinuch and helping my son every step of the way. But when I was called by him to tell me that Rabbi Walkin was nifter, I couldn't believe it. I used to think that he was larger than life, that he would never be nifter, that Hashem would give him a pass, that Hashem would say, you know, Rabbi Walkin, you're such a pure tzaddik and such a pure yid, I'm going to let you live forever. And unfortunately, that was not Hashem's plan. But when I heard that Rav Walkin was nifter, I was tzebrachen. It's the only word that I think does justice to how I felt. And I used to think that at my age in life, that tears and real sadness, overwhelming sadness, would be reserved for only when a member of your immediate family was nifter. And that's how I felt. And I felt that way because I considered Rabbi Walkin as someone who I was part of his family. And whoever spoke here tonight, I think they said it very well. Rabbi Walkin never looked down on anyone. And every time I came to Eretz Yisrael, I went to his apartment in Bayit Vagan, And I sat there with him, and I listened to him. And I listened to him as if I was watching someone who was not an Eved Hashem, and I understand what that means, but someone who was almost wearing a shechina on his face because he had such a beautiful aura about him, and he had such a twinkle in his eye and such a wonderful smile that you felt that you were in someone important's presence. And every time I came to Eretz Yisrael, my son would come with me, and we would go there. And I know Rebbetzin Walkin understands this, and we would sit there, and he would talk to us. But he wouldn't talk to us about Torah. He would talk to us about life. And he knew a lot about life. And he knew a lot about living as a Yid. And he knew a lot about Eretz Yisrael and about America. There wasn't any topic that you could have a conversation with Rabbi Walkin that he was not an expert about. He knew everything. And it was it was a wonderful experience. And to me, it was an awe-inspiring experience, because I left there thinking that I was going to become a better Yid because of the visit with Rabbi Walkin. So I want to thank you for allowing me to participate in tonight's program. I want you to understand that the relationship that I and Rabbi Walkin and my extended family had with Rabbi Walkin and Rebbetzin Walkin, they were part of our mishpacha. They were not just friends, they were part of our mishpacha. And I remember sitting in the apartment in Bayat Vagan, and sometimes my grandson Shlomo would be with us. And he would tell me how often he came to their house on Shabbat, and how often they ate together. And there was always room for him. And then Akiva, who learned in the Mechina, which was in Bayat Vagan, down the street, he developed a relationship with Rabbi Walkin. And my grandson Dovi had a relationship with Rabbi Walkin. And they were all different ages, and they were all different levels of Torah education. But every one of them felt like they were very close to Rabbi Walkin. And Rabbi Walkin made them feel that way. So I want us to be honest with you. I was shocked when I heard that he was nifter. I was heartbroken, but I was also shocked. And I thought to myself how sad my son David was. My son David was so sad that he could barely speak to me on the phone about this loss that he had experienced on a very personal level. And then I heard from my grandchildren, and they were sad, and they were overwhelmed, and they could barely speak about the loss that they personally felt that they have suffered. So every time I came to Eretz Yisrael, I visited Rabbi Walkin. But you know what? He also visited me in Ramat Eshkol. We have a cheder in Ramat Eshkol. Baruch Hashem, it's named after my brother, Rav Aaron Brafman, Zechat Tzadik Levracha, who was a big Talmid Chacham and dedicated his life to chinuch. And when he was nifter and my son started this cheder, we named it Toras Aaron. Rabbi Walkin understood the level of connection to Rav Aaron Brafman, to Rav David Brafman, and to me. And he came to the cheder, and it was so difficult for him, Nebuch, to schlep there. He had to be helped up. He had to be helped into a car. He had to be helped out of the car. And yet, when the cheder honored us in the Hakaras HaTov dinner, he came and he spoke. And when the cheder had a Chachnosis Sefer Torah, he came and he spoke. And he came and he spoke, and now his son teaches in the Mechina. And his son is a beloved Rebbe. And when the Mechina had an inauguration dinner, Rabbi Walkin was there. And he came and he spoke. And it wasn't easy for him to travel, and it wasn't easy for him to make the trip. And he had great personal hardship just getting out of a chair. And in his soft-spoken voice that you can identify anywhere, I was a chavrusa with Rabbi Walkin by long distance. He would call me every Friday morning for 2 years. We never missed a Friday, an Erev Shabbos, where he called me and he gave me a little Dvar Torah. not something that was complicated, something that he could explain in 60 seconds. And sometimes we got disconnected, and sometimes I had to call him back, or he called me back. But he never missed an Erev Shabbos until he was just very sick. And then I would come there, and he would make up the conversation. So I feel like I belong here. I feel like I belong here because I didn't learn with him in yeshiva. I didn't grow up with him in yeshiva. I didn't become his friend until I was already, I think I earned the friendship. I think I tried very hard to do good things because of him. And I'm never intimidated when I speak anywhere. I'm a criminal defense lawyer. It's hard to intimidate me. But tonight, I feel like I belong here. I don't feel like I shouldn't have been asked to speak, and I'm very grateful and honored that I was asked to say a few words. And I want you to understand that it's very easy for me to say, you know what, I'm too busy. I can't be there. It's Brooklyn. It's in the middle of the week. It's at night. It's cold. It wasn't one of the options that I had. I wanted to be part. I was thrilled when I was asked to participate. I was honored to be thought roy that I could speak here. And I want you to know something else. The last time I met Rabbi Walkin and I was in his house, he gave me a signed copy of the 2-volume treatise that he had just finished, and it was just hot off the presses. And it's out in the lobby, and if you haven't got one, you should buy it. We'll let them arrange for you to get one. And it's called Das Chaim. And Das Chaim, Chaim is his first name, so it's obviously the wisdom of Chaim Walkin. But it's also Das of life. It's also, this is how you should live your life. And in fact, on the cover of this 2-volume set, it says Torah values in man's relationship with himself, with God, and with his fellow man. That really sums up Rabbi Walkin's philosophy. You want to be a complete Yid? You have to have a relationship with yourself, you have to have a relationship with Hashem, and you have to have a relationship with every other Yid. And we heard about Sinas Chinam. It wasn't part of Rabbi Walkin's vocabulary. He didn't understand how we could have gotten so far astray that the Beis Mikdash would be destroyed because of it. But he tried very hard to explain in his own unique way why it was not a good idea for Jews to look down upon each other, for Jews not to all get along. He used to say to me, we have enough enemies in the world. We don't need enemies from within our own mishpacha, or from within Klal Yisrael. So I've actually started to read his work. And I found something which, I'm not embarrassed to tell you, I think he was speaking to me when I read this, or speaking to someone like me. And I want you to understand that at page 715 of volume 2, under the category Elul Essays, and under the subtitle Sanctify Yourself, the following is written. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is watching you, honors you for your talents, and is waiting to see the service of Hashem that is within you. You have a self, and you have the responsibility to find it and to work on it, not for reasons of your personal ego, rather to come to an understanding of who you are, and in order to raise yourself up. The job of a person is to recognize himself, to come to an understanding of who he is, and in what ways he can use his innate talent to progress in his service to Hashem based on his own nature, and not lose sight of this. Pretty interesting. Because I think the reason we got along is because I think he saw that I was using whatever talent Hashem gave me to be able to communicate effectively, to use it for the benefit of Klal Yisrael. And to tell you that this is maybe the 100th time I've been asked to speak on behalf of a charity or a chesed organization or a shul or a yeshiva, and I never say no. And I never say no because I think it's part of my obligation to use my ability to communicate effectively in a way that helps the organization bring itself closer to the people who come to listen or come to attend the dinner or come to contribute to the dinner. So at the end of the day, I think Rabbi Walkin was trying to give me a signal. It's okay not to be a Talmid Chacham. It's more important to be a good Jew. And however you manifest that talent, so long as it's good for you and good for Klal Yisrael, it's what you have an obligation to do. So ladies and gentlemen, the Chashav Rabbanim and the Walkin Mishpacha, I'm honored to have been able to participate in this Shloshim. I still can't bring myself to accept the fact that when I go to Eretz Yisrael, Bezrat Hashem, for Hanukkah this year, that I'm not going to be able to see Rav Walkin, to gain wisdom from Rabbi Walkin, to have at least an ability to meet with him just for a half hour, just for a few minutes. And in order to overcome that loss, in order to deal better with that loss, I want to tell you that being here is therapeutic. It's therapeutic for me, and I think it's therapeutic for all of you who have come out tonight to honor Rav Chaim Walkin, Olav Shalom. And now that he is sitting in a makam right next to Hashem, because I think that's the makam that's reserved for really pure tzaddikim. This is what I've been told, and I honestly believe that. I think he's smiling down on us, and I think he's smiling down on us because I think he understands that although he is no longer in this world, his teachings are in this world. And in order to continue in his own personal quest to help Klal Yisrael, I think the teaching has to continue. And whether you learn it from his volumes or you learn it from stories that you hear about him, or Dvar Torah that you hear about him, or you hear about it from his children or his Rebbitzin, or from Talmidim who graced his house, or he graced them with being invited to their house. But to him, it was, come, you'll sit, you'll eat, you'll be in our house a little bit for Shabbos. You'll like it, you see, you'll like it. And you know what? It's true. My grandchildren love coming to his house. And they're not people who you would expect to feel that way, and yet that's exactly, how they felt about Rabbi Walkin, about Rebbitzin Walkin, about his own children. So I want to thank you very much. I hope that I have not used this opportunity without making at least the impression I was hoping to make, that I really loved Rabbi Walkin. I'm not embarrassed to say that. I really miss Rabbi Walkin, even though he's only been nifta for 30 days. Every time I look at his face, I see what maybe we will never see again here, but he's now hopefully a Melitz Yosef for all of us. And as an advocate, I'm pleased that we have a real advocate in Shemayim, hopefully convincing Hashem to make simchas for Klal Yisrael and to make Jews of every stripe and every level of hashkafa, every level of lamda, to be able to operate as one hopefully good family should operate, and that we should respect each other and have nachas from each other. And I think tonight I'm very hopeful that he has nachas from us too. Thank you very much.
זה בשבילנו המוסר הגדול ביותר. לדעת יותר ויותר ויותר, ועם הידיעה לצרף את זה, לחבר את זה מיד עם המעשה.
His mechitza, to be in his company, it was like a Radin embassy. It was like wherever he was, you felt that you were back with Shmuel David, back with the Beis Aaron, back with the Chavetz Chaim, and you felt connected.
You used to feel like you're walking in the homes. He lived them, Mir, all the great yeshivas of Europe. He was our last connection. And when he went, feel that everything went.
Reb Walkin was an eclectic person. You could find that he was carrying with him the Likutei Eitzos from Rabbi Nachman, and another time you would see him, well, very often you would see him, with the Chachma Umusa from the Alter from Kelm.
One day, he made us a tea called ginseng tea. I happen to know that ginseng tea is a Chinese tea. I didn't know if he knew that. So I thought I'd offer my wisdom. And I said to him, does the Rav know that this is Chinese tea? This tea is Chinese? And I will never forget it. He looked at me and said, I'm Chinese. And then he started to tell me about his Masorah, Shanghai, the Mir, the whole thing. And it was transformational. When he spoke to you about it, he was like a bridge. He could bring you into that whole world. I almost felt like the Mir Yeshiva, they went from Europe to Russia, to Japan, to Shanghai, and then to America. And he kind of took you on the reverse route. He took you back through America, Shanghai, until you're back in Europe.
He would be able to speak to the greatest person and have all his attention, and they would feel so warm and close to him, and also to the youngest person, the person that's very far away from Torah mitzvahs. On the one hand, Rav Shach, when he'll come into him, he'll stand up and take every word that he said so seriously. On the other hand, a little child would feel so close to the Mashgiach and miss him.
פעם שאלתי אותו, מה יסודו של כל החינוך? ואז הדברים היו כל כך ברורים אצלו, ואמר, ידידות עם הילד.
We adored him. We loved him. And it would be hard to say, did we love him more or respect him more? Or did we respect him more or love him more? But the word adore is the one that comes to mind. And I think that one of the reasons that we felt that way was because that's the way he felt about us.
In my first winter's man in yeshiva, we were learning together second Seder every day. And without exaggeration, that second Seder put me on my feet for yeshiva, and probably from then on.
The first time we went to see yeshivas, so one of the yeshivas we went to meet was the yeshiva of Rabbi Walkin. And I remember, like today, this warmth. And he said, if you have any, feel a need to come, you can come and we'll have coffee and we'll eat some cake. And it was sincere. It wasn't just like a feel good. It was a real message. And I told myself right away, this is the yeshiva I'm going to. Such a warmth at first.
There was a lot in the yeshiva that I had issues with, and I came and told him all about it. He took it all in. And he heard me out, he heard everything, and he said to me, I remember he's sitting at the head of the table, he said, there's no such thing as a perfect yeshiva, but there's a lot of good in the yeshiva. Find the good, focus on it, and you'll do well.
He presented me with a sefer. It was this sefer, Alei Shor, which you see, this is the copy. It's been used. And when he gave it to me, he said, all you have to do is do everything that it says in there, and everything will be fine.
One day, Rabbi Walkin comes over to me and he says, how is it going with the chavrusas? I told him, really, I'll tell you the truth, the first Seder is not doing so well. He said, really? So he sat down next to me and we started learning. And from then on, we were first Seder chavrusas. He made me feel very proud, and I feel like my life changed since I met him, and I got a closer, a warmer feeling towards learning and becoming a real Ben Torah.
I remember when he said shir, he would sit at the end of the table, and I often did what I could to sit immediately in the chair to his right. Why? Because as he was saying shir, he would periodically reach out his hand and he would grab and hold the hand of whoever was sitting next to him, in particular on the right-hand side. Now, I was a grown man. For a time, I was even married at the time. And I wanted to sit next to him because I wanted to feel him hold my hand.
He felt every pain of every Jew. It doesn't matter where he was from. He would feel the pain of someone in Argentina, in New York, in Gibraltar, France.
It was Zay Shabbat in the house of my brother-in-law. He was talking about, I think it was like Rabbi Akiva, and העולם היה שמם, and he was asking why העולם היה שמם. And he explained that it's לימוד התורה and his מסירת התורה. The מסירת התורה should be by the תלמידים of Rabbi Akiva. And after that he started to sing נפשנו חיכסו להשם. I used to sing also. So he started to realize that I didn't know this song. So he stopped and he told all the people there, I will teach you this song. And he started to sing, נפשנו חיכסו להשם, עזרנו מגיננו. And he did with his hand like this, every single part of the song. For him it was very nice, it was special.
Bocher gave him a present, a sefer. So of course, Kedakrim Shabachrim, does he have it already? Was I zocher to? So he asked. He says the Mashgiach has the sefer. I'm pretty sure there's grounds to say no, or face vasa, and then it's midake shalom or whatever. He didn't say that. He said, I do have it, but now that you've given me the sefer, I will use only yours. And that did so much more. It's like, Yofi Shel Tshuva.
When I would see the Mashgiach and the Rebbetzin interacting, it's hard to describe it. I never in my life saw such a thing. True respect, true love, in the deeper sense. They would speak without words. The Mesirus Nefesh that the Rebbetzin had for the Mashgiach is incredible, and that's something that I'll always take with me.
Whenever he wrote, even in a sefer that he gave to me the last time we met, he made an inscription, and he had beautiful handwriting, and he always wrote with a fountain pen. It was a beautiful fountain pen, and it was beautiful handwriting, and nowadays, that is a lost art. But the attention to detail and the beauty of the communication was something that he did in what he wrote, and it was also communicated very much so in terms of how he spoke to us as individuals and how he disseminated Torah and Musar in his shiurim.
The way that he was, we can be that way, maybe not to the same degree. Sometimes you hear about an Adam Gadol and you think, well, okay, he's an Adam Gadol, but that's where it ends. But here, you hear every story that you hear about him, you say, I can do that. I'm not him, not to the same degree, but at least in the same direction.
He would always tell the Bachim, you have to be proud of who you are. You have to be proud from the community you come from your forefathers, your minhagim. And even he had many people that they came from homes that were far from Torah mitzvahs. But he always found good things about their parents, that they should look up to their parents, even if they weren't from. So your parents are for sure good people. They have special things inside them. Think about it and look up to them.
I said to Rabbi Walkin, I brought you a couple of things. One is my son to meet. And secondly, I brought you a sefer on chinuch that I was zocher to write. And here's my son, here's my sefer. Harei shalcha lefanecha. I said, it's all because of you.
היה סולם מוצב ארצה וראשו מגיע השמיימה. היה בעולם הזה, ידע לרדת לכל אחד, אמנם הוא היה למעלה, היה לו אצילות, רוממות. הוא היה מחבר בין שני העולמות. ידע לחבר בין שני העולמות. וזאת הייתה התורה המיוחדת שלו, שבה חינכת את עם ישראל.
Recently, I would come home, I remember always telling my wife that people don't understand who the Mashgiach is. And now I feel that I myself, I don't understand also. As much as I saw, as much as I felt, as much as I realized, something incredible. But it says, Zaru b'chaim, afu b'chaim. The Mashgiach he left children, grandchildren, each one is a gem of a person, and they could keep on giving over what the Mashgiach gave us. He left lots of Talmidim. When his Torah is alive, so he's alive. The Mashgiach is always going to be alive with us in our hearts throughout our whole lives. We just have to keep on going his ways.
רבותיי, עבור ימים לא קלים. כמה דרכים מחובר עם החיבור עם הרב שהחיינו וקימונו והגיענו לזמן הזה שנזכה לאורך ימים ושנים להתחבר ולהיות יחד איתם בלימוד ובביקוש המוזיקה ובעליות השלמות.
B'shus Moranon v'Rabonon v'Raboi Sai. The Rebbetzin and the Mishpachas Walkin in Kol HaKol HaKodesh Hazeh. Baruch Hashem, I was zeicher to be Talmid by the Mashgiach over close to 34 years in the Yeshiva Teres Yisrael. I understand our Talmidim from Ateret Torah, but this was in a terrace. I want to make a disclaimer. I'm not coming here to be maspid the Mashgiach. I feel that this is above me. I'm coming to say divrei zichronos, things that we remember as Talmidim. I'm coming to present myself and the Talmidim, and for this purpose I actually called some of my friends. Some of them you heard on the video. I called Ariel Sisro. I want to thank Moshe Ben Tzin Malik for providing me shmuzim the Mashgiach has given, and Reb Aryeh Millet, that you have heard him before, which the Mashgiach learned with him Chavusa when his Chavusa didn't work out, and Yoel Salik. And I want to tell you as follows. Some 28 years ago, I was in Tovshin Nun Hey, 1994, at the Levaya of Reb Shlomo Zalman. And I'm walking with a group from the Kollel, and we walk into the Levaya. And we see a group of people with knitted yarmulkes walking next to us, and I hear them saying, Ma kol hacharedim ha'elo osim kan? What are all these Haredi people doing here? And as we follow along, there's another group of Hasidim walking by. And I hear a voice and they're saying, Ma kol ha'litvaks? What are these litvaks doing here? And it hit me that every one of these segments who came to the Levaya, they felt that he's one of ours. Rabbi Shlomo Zalman is one of ours. I'm telling you, I had the same feeling when the Mashgiach Rav Chaim was nifter. But it was B'chayiv also like this. Every segment in Klal Yisrael felt that this is one of us. Ashkenazim, Hasidim, Litvaks, Sfardim, name it. Everybody felt this is one of ours. The Telzers, the mirrors, this is one of ours. I have some news for you. Reb Chaim was not a Telzer, b'mechila. He was not a mirror. He was not a Hasidish, not a Litvak. He was not an Ashkenazi, not a Sfardi. What was he? I'll tell you a story. I learned Chavusa with Reb Aaron Walkin, Zichrono Levacha, some 31 years ago in BMG. It was an Elul. And I displayed to him, I told him my impression and my appreciation for Reb Chaim, for the Mashgiach. And he put a smile on his face and he said, he's a Walkin. And the light bulb went on. He's a Walkin. I'm going to explain you what it means. It's a brand of a quality. You know what the Lamborghini is. You know what the Ferrari is. This is a Walkin. What does Malkin mean? I want to share with you tonight what it means to be a Walkin and how you can be a part of the Walkin. Bear with me. Benjamin Brafman described before that you would look at the Mashgiach like a malach. The Shechin is there. Indeed, we all felt that. When Mashgiach was nifter, we all felt, we loved the Mashgiach. Everybody felt it. Everybody who spoke here spoke about the love. There's a Chaim Volozhiner who says that when you see that people love a person, that's a siman, that's a sign how much love he had for people. the love that you feel, the energy you feel in this room, the love that Klal Yisrael felt to Reb Chaim, that just showed you how much love he had for Klal Yisrael. The Mashgiach, I want to share with you the stories with his teaching and to show you how the teaching of Reb Chaim, how he implemented them every single day. He asked, if I need to summarize the Sefer Shemois, I would quote a pasuk, he said, Simu levavchem al divrechem. Simu levavchem al darkechem. It's a pasuk in Chagai. Set your hearts away, make room in your heart to internalize things. He would quote, Moshe Rabbeinu, vayar b'sivloisam. Moshe Rabbeinu saw the pain of Klal Yisrael. Rashi explains, Nosan Elov v'libo Elios Mitzah Aleim. He put his heart and his focus to make room in his heart to be Mitzah for Klal Yisrael. The Mashgiach had a huge heart. He made room for everybody. Hu hoy hoyma, when he used to say. He used to quote the Mashgiach Rav Wolbe said over a story that Rabbi Ruchim Levovich, the Mashgiach of the Mir, he went on a trip in a train from the Mir to Warsaw in Poland. It's a trip of 7 to 8 hours. The Yidden used to go in one wagon and hang together in that wagon. Over the trip of 7 to 8 hours, Rabbi Yochanan was able to know everybody's name and what they do, what their profession is. And when the trip was over, he was able to tell you, I have a shidduch for you. This one has a daughter in shidduch and this one has a son. He would say, your business is so-and-so, you should do a partnership with so-and-so who would be a good shidduch in the business. He cared for people and he took interest, and that's why he schmoozed with people and was able to know in order to help them. There was the Mashgiach. His eyes and his heart was open for Klal Yisrael. The Mashgiach was an unbelievable listener. He was able to listen and to internalize what you say, to open his heart, to get the things in, and once he internalized it, he was uplifting. And like it was mentioned here before, he was holding your hand. I remember that, and my friends remember that, but more recently, my son was in camp in the summer, and as my old children, myself, when I go to a trip, I used to go to the Mashgiach to Rebbetzin, and my son tells me, I have 2 hours before trip. The camp gives us 2 hours. Which gadol can you get me in? I said, take a cab with your friends, go to Kasuto, go to Beit Vagan. I'm going to call him while you're on the way. There's no question. The Rebbetzins' house is always open. And surely enough, I got on the phone. I said, my son wants to come to Gadabacha. Sure, why not? 2 minutes later, he shows up, he's there. And like anybody else, the Walkin Mishpacha went out for the family, their entire family. They know the names of the Talmidim. They know the names of the children of Talmidim. Their house was open. I'll tell you something more. You heard somebody on the video before where the Mashgiach saw that it's not working out with his chavusa. So what did Mashgiach do? I want you to visualize that. Rabbi Aryeh Milet. He comes into the Bismedrash. He says, what's doing with your chavusa? He says, it's not working out. This is a yeshiva. You have like 300 bachim, 400 bachim. The yeshiva comes with the frak and the hamburg, sits down and learns with them chavusa. This was a scene of every single day. The coffee room of the yeshiva was by the Mashgiach. The Bachim would come, make coffee, and it was their house. He told me, he called up the rabbis, and years later, it dawned to him, I never asked a shus to take the coffee. Before Yom Kippur, he calls the rabbis and to ask Mechila. The rabbis says, what are you talking about? That's what we are. That's what we are for. But this was the place. They were the tat and the mam of the yeshiva. Everybody felt that. And like it was mentioned before by Chacham Yosef, that everybody felt, I am the prime Talmud. I felt I'm the closest Talmud. I'm speaking to all my Chaverim. They all say I'm the closest Talmud. That was the feeling he gave to every single Yid, not only Talmidim. There was a story going around. You probably heard the story. But Tommy, the African-American neighbor of one of the sons here in America who started crying, and they asked him, what are you crying about? He says, nobody ever complimented me. Reb Chaim would pass by and said, oh, what a beautiful garden. Tommy, the African-American is crying. Everybody, he touched the hearts of every single person. The Mashgiach, one of his main things was, and was mentioned here before, be yourself. The Eibishter gave you talents. I think, Benjamin, you mentioned it before. You have to be yourself. The Mashgiach implemented it to the T, and I will show you a few examples, a few stories, how he himself was himself, with no cheshbonis, and how he taught his Talmidim, everybody to be himself in their own way. And that's also a part of the Walkin that you're going to see in a few seconds. He said, if you have a talent, or if you have appreciation to greet people, even if it's not the in thing, and even if it's not cool, go for it. Greet people nicely. You cultivate that feeling that you have. Whatever talent you have to cultivate it. He brought a story with the Akedah. Avram Avinu goes to the Akedah with tears in his eyes. The Mashgiach says, never stop being a father. Even if you're doing the Ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but the tears in the eyes still have to be. A father is always a father. I'll tell you a fascinating story. There was a boy who had a birthday in the yeshiva, and his father dropped off a cake to make to give his son something, so the son would have his birthday. So where do you think the son is going with the birthday cake? We're talking about this Medrash boy. He's not going into the dining room. That would not be cool. He goes to the Mashgiach's house. The Mashgiach cuts the cake, and guess what happens? The Mashgiach is singing, "Happy birthday to you." Do you visualize that now? The Mashgiach, like we said, the Malach, with the Shchen on his face, with the Hamburg, with the lange frak. But this is not beneath him. He's being himself. He feels that the Bacha needs some appreciation, some recognition that this is his birthday, and there's nobody else to do it, so else, it's natural. The Mashgiach is going to do it. Push it. I'll tell you something else. The Mashgiach came to Flatbush, and one of the speakers that you heard before in the video is now in Flatbush in the yeshiva. The Mashgiach calls him up and says, so-and-so, have you eaten lunch yet? He said, no. So the Mashgiach says, okay, why don't we meet in Essex and Coney, and we'll eat lunch together. So I asked him, tell me, did he go like in the back room where nobody sees you? He doesn't want to. He said, no. He didn't go in the back room. We sat right in the front, and he was sitting with me there. It was such a natural thing, because he's a tata, he's a friend. He's a Mashgiach, he teaches us. And like people have said, he's godless in Torah. I met Reb Shlomo Kanievsky this Shabbos. He stayed by a neighbor of mine. And I knew that Reb Chaim had a tremendous haracha for the Mashgiach Zichron Livracha. So I said, tell me something. He says, Reb Chaim would stand up and for the Mashgiach Zichron Livracha. But at the same time, he was a friend. At the same time, he would take out his Talmud and eat together like a friend. We mamish zusammen. Let me tell you something. There's a Gemara. The Gemara is in Brachas, Lamed Aleph from the base. And the Gemara says, Chana was davening for a child. And she was davening for a child. She said, Zera Anoshim. The Gemara explained, what is Zera Anoshim? Zera Shemuvla Bein Anoshim. The Gemara says, not too tall, not too short, not too fat, not too skinny, not too smart, and not too weak. I'm asking you. Shoot for the stars. You have the opportunity. You want to ask him the Kodesh Baruch Hu. He can give you whatever you want. You're asking for a mediocre son. That's what you're asking for. I want to suggest, the same Gemara says that this Shmuel Hanovi, that was the child that Chana was Zoicha, is compared to Moshe and Aaron. Moshe and Aaron b'choy Anav v'Shmuel b'korim Shemoy. What was she asking? She was asking for average kid? That's not Pshat in the Gemara. I'll tell you what I suggest. She was asking for somebody who's outstanding without standing out. And that was the Mashgiach. He was outstanding, but he was never standing out. You could miss it. You could miss who the godless of the Mashgiach was, which we did. I'm just telling you stories from a Talmud. We didn't know his greatness in Lomdes. One time in the Shir Kololi, we got to get a little peek when he had asked the Kasha Vichapt, that we're talking about the Lamdan. But to the degree that Reb Shmuel Yaakov Bonstein said that he was from the lions in Mir, we didn't know that. What we saw, what I can share with you, is the love that he had to every Talmud, the appreciation. But I want to say one more thing. The Mashgiach taught us something very important. The atmosphere in the house always has to be a happy atmosphere. He would quote from his mother a story with the Chafetz Chaim. His mother used to spend a Shabbos, a meal at Shabbos once a month by the Chafetz Chaim. His grandfather was very close to the Chafetz Chaim. So he asked the mother to share something. So the mother said, when the Chafetz Chaim would come back from shul, before he greets the Malachim, he would give a compliment to his wife. He'd say, wow, the table is set so beautifully. It's light, it's clean, it's beautiful. And then he would go and greet the Malachim. When the Mashgiach was in France, and they asked him to give a shiur or something on Shalom Bayis, so he told them that, and he said, try it at home, and report back to me what happened. And they indeed went and it reported back to the Mashgiach that the lady said, Moshe, ma kara lecha? What happened? Why happened? So the Mashgiach was laughing. He said, why are you so stingy with a compliment? Why are you so stingy? If the mechanic fixed your car and he did a good job, he put work in it, say thank you, give him a compliment. The cleaning lady, she cleaned it, she made it nice, so say thank you. Why don't you compliment? Compliment, he said, is like oxygen, fuel for the car. I want to see one point to news dicey. This was the Nekuda of the Mashgiach, and he was in this Nekuda, he was miyuchad b'doiroi, that we have to learn from this. Everybody can learn from this in order to become a Walkin. I'm going to explain. The Mashgiach spoke about himlachtos chavrecho lecho, where you mamlich, did you make your friend a king over you? What does it mean to make your friend a king over you? This is one of the questions, actually, that we are going to be asked when we come to Olam Haba. They're going to ask us, himlachtos chavrecho lecho. If I ask you, what would you say? How did the Mashgiach do that? So he quoted the Gemara. The Gemara is in Chulin, Daf Nundal Dom Beis. And the Gemara says that a person who has a profession and is in the middle of his work is not allowed to stand up even for Talmud Chacham. He's not allowed to. You have to do your work. You can't take off from your work. The exception is people who come for the mitzvah of Bikurim and they come to Yerushalayim, you're allowed to stand up for them. Why? If you're not going to stand up, you're causing them not to forego the trip and the bother to come to Yerushalayim again the next year. The Mashgiach is asking, so why is it my business if they don't come next year? What did I do? The Mashgiach said, the Gemara is saying that if you're not complimenting them, if you're not giving them appreciation for what they do, you are machshilim la'osid. It's considered that you are the one who put a stumbling block and you are the cause why they didn't go. Mind-boggling. I wanted to bring a ride to this. There's a Zohar Kodesh in Parshas Tazria. Just like a person gets punished for saying a bad word, same as a person gets punished for saying bad words, he gets punished for the ability of giving a good compliment, of giving a good vote and they didn't give it, of them he gets punished. The Mashgiach was a master in that, to compliment people. I want to say another thing. It was mentioned before, people would come to ask advice. And it was a busy house. It was a busy house by the Walkins. So you would think that the people in the family were getting, a little bit annoyed, and now it's not a good time. There was never such a thing. It's not a good time to visit them. It's always the door was open. What's pshat? How did he do that? I tell you what I saw. A person comes to ask advice on Mashgiach. He calls in the Rebbitzin. And the Rebbitzin had tremendous good advice to say. And as anybody who went through the house knows. And he would involve her. He would listen to what she has to say. And sometimes when somebody came for Eitzah for Shidduch, he would call son so-and-so. And was the Eitzah for business, he would call son so-and-so. And they would come and we'd be part of the conversation. Every Talmud, the Mishpacha was a part of it. We were a part of their family. And that's why nobody felt that infringing on their... What do you mean? The Talmidim are the part of the family. Then you the names of the Talmidim and names of the kids of the Talmidim. This was one big family, like was mentioned before. I know it's late. I don't want to take off on the time. But I want to tell you one nekuda. Reb Chaim Shmulevitz is a famous Reb Chaim Shmulevitz who says that the mitzvah of Kibud Av V'Eim means you have to find in your parent something that in this nekuda they are bigger than anybody else in the world. That's the mitzvah of Kibud Av V'Eim. The Mashgiach took that a step further. In every single person in the world, he saw something in them that they are great or the greatest in our generation. He had such appreciation, a real appreciation. He would make himself a Talmud in this B'china and you would feel equal. He would ask you Eitzah. On one nekuda that you can give Eitzah, you ask an Eitzah and other things also, but you would feel that he has appreciation to you. And there was the godless. The godless was that himlachtos chavercho. How did he do himlachtos chavercho? he would ask Eitzah. He would ask Eitzah. It doesn't matter if it's a younger person or older person. He would give you a compliment. He would sit with you if it's in the like Shmuel Hanavi. Shmuel Hanavi went out to the people. He didn't wait for people to come to you. The Mashgiach would sit with you if it's in an eating place, in a restaurant, it's singing happy birthday if you needed, giving encouragement, giving a compliment, whatever needed, he was on equal to you. You never felt that's the way how he taught. And one thing that was said before was the koil d'mamo dako. Eliyahu Bahar HaKarmel, when Eliyahu Bahar HaKarmel, after the episode of Eliyahu Bahar HaKarmel, Hashem appears to Eliyahu, and there's a tornado going on. Loi beruach Hashem. And then there's a noise that can break everything. Then there's fire, loi be'eish Hashem. And then there's a koil d'mamo dako. That koil d'mamo dako is the koil that we saw by the Mashgiach. The koil d'mamo dako, day in and day out. Every time, on time. Everything is neat. He finishes his shmooze on time, and that's the pressure I have now to finish on time. He never went over time. He always... The coil that he had, the soft-spoken that he had, you would have an audience of thousands of people or hundreds of people, you wouldn't hear a pin drop. He had a captive audience with that coil d'mamo dako. He was able to go through to every single individual. He reached the hearts of people. And that's why, from every single segment of Klal Yisrael, they felt the loss of the Mashgiach. He spoke directly to your heart. He connected to your heart. My son, when he was in camp and he went to visit Mashgiach, the Mashgiach held his hand like was mentioned before. He held his hand for 10 minutes. And my son remembers exactly what he told him. He asked him in the shir what the Rebbe said. I don't think he's going to be able to quote it exactly. But what the Mashgiach told him, he remembers till today. We all feel the pain. It's the Pasha of Yaakov. And Rashi says that Yitziat Tzadik min Olam Oiser Roishem. He made an impression. He made an impression that Pono Ziva Pono Hoido. We can fill that void. And how can we fill that void? I will tell you. I will tell you how we can be a Mashgiach. How we can be a Walkin. A Walkin is a trademark. How do you become a Walkin? 1, be yourself. Take the talents Hashem has given to you. No Walkins are the same. Why? There's no cookie cutters. Because the Mashgiach didn't demand to be somebody else. He wasn't somebody else. He was unique. Tell me, do you find anybody else a giant like the Mashgiach that Chaim Kanievsky stands up for him, would sit with the Talmud in Essex and Coney? That's Shmuel Hanavi. You're not going to find. He was unique. He was unique in that aspect. You are unique. Every single person here, every single in the world is unique. The Mashgiach was able to tap into that. He was able to compliment for you and to be mamlich you on this nekuda. Pay attention to your surrounding. Pay attention to people. You're the wagon with people. You daven next to the person next to you. Pay attention what their needs are, who they are. You know the guy who's sitting davening next to you 5 years, you don't even know his name? How is that possible? Pay attention what they need. Open your heart. Listen to them. See it. Find a mile in your friend, which in this particular point, he is a king over you. And learn from him. Don't be stingy on compliments. May his memory be blessed, and may we all try to continue his legacy. May the Rebbetzin and the family find the Chama. Thank you for listening.
Esreinai elehorim, me'ayin yovo yesri.